In this video, I want to talk about the secret to supernatural increase. I meet so many people who are struggling financially. They don't have enough to make ends meet, and they ask me to pray for their finances, but things don't change because prayer is not the seed for financial increase. And some of you, you know this. You've been praying and praying and praying for your finances, and nothing has changed. It's because you are not tapping into the secret to supernatural increase. And that's what I want to show you how to do in this video. In John chapter 6, there was a great multitude that came to hear Jesus preach, and they were hungry. And so Jesus turns to Philip and he says, "Where should we buy bread to feed all these people?" And of course, he was just messing with them because he knew they didn't have enough money to buy bread for everyone. And that's exactly what Philip said. And Peter finds a boy with 5 loaves of bread and 2 small fish, but he said it's not enough for everyone. I mean, there's 5,000 men, not including women and children. And this is what Jesus did. Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. And he did the same with the fish. See, notice Jesus didn't create food out of nothing to feed the multitude. He took the boy's lunch, blessed it, and then the miracle of multiplication happened. See, God always works with what we give him. Supernatural increase doesn't happen independent of you. It happens when you partner with him. God doesn't do the supernatural if we don't do our part in the natural. And so the lesson embedded in this miracle is so simple. If you put what you have in God's hands, he can make a lot out of a little. How many of you would like to see God do that in your life? How many of you would be okay if God multiplied your finances? Well, this story contains the secret to multiplication in financial increase. And the first principle we see is that it has to be blessed before it can multiply, right? Jesus took the bread and fish, he blessed it, and then gave it to his disciples to distribute. Now, what do you think would have happened if the disciples took the 5 loaves and the fish and started to hand them out before Jesus blessed them? They would have multiplied, right? It has to be blessed before it can multiply. And the way our finances are blessed is by bringing the first 10% of our income to God's house. Hebrews says that Jesus himself receives and blesses the tithe. And so whenever we give to the church, it's actually Jesus who receives those tithes and blesses them. And it's God's blessing upon our finances that brings supernatural increase. Romans 11:16 says, "For if the first fruit is holy, the lump is also holy. And if the root is holy, so are the branches." The first fruit is another word for the tithe, because the tithe isn't just 10% of your income, it's the first 10% of your income. In other words, you don't wait until you spent the majority of your paycheck and then give, whatever you have left over to God. You give God the first 10% of your income. And here's why. If the first fruit is holy, then the lump is holy. And that word holy, it means to be set apart, to be sanctified for God. And so whenever you give the first 10% of your income to God, he blesses the rest. The 90% that you have to keep is holy. It's set apart for God, which means it's blessed. And whatever is blessed by God multiplies. It causes supernatural increase. I was teaching on this principle at my church one time, and there was a woman who had always been a giver, but she never tithed, right? She kind of, just gave whatever she had left over at the end of the month. But when she heard about the principle and the power of the tithe, she decided to give it a try. And so she gave the first 10% to God. Now, the week before this, her boss came in and told her that it was impossible for her to get a raise at her current position. The administration would not approve a raise for that job that she had. Those were the exact words that her boss told her. It's impossible for you to get a raise. Well, 2 weeks after she started tithing, her boss came in and said, "We're giving you a 30% raise. I don't know how this got approved, but you're getting 30% more than you were making before." See, when you put God first, his blessing comes upon your finances, causing you to experience supernatural increase. Number two, it has to be given away before it can multiply. Notice the miracle of multiplication in John 6 didn't happen in Jesus' hands. It happened in the hands of the disciples as they were willing to give it away. Now, what do you think would have happened if they didn't start giving it away? Instead, they just stared at it and waited for it to multiply. I don't think anything would have happened. I don't think the food would have multiplied. I mean, it had already been blessed, so it had the potential to multiply. But if the disciples hadn't been willing to give it away, it would have never been anything more than 5 loaves of bread and 2 small fish. See, God can't multiply what we don't give. You have to give what you have to God before he can multiply it. You know, Mark Batterson, one of my favorite authors, he was pastoring a church plant, and the church didn't have enough to pay him a full-time salary, and he was struggling financially, but he felt compelled to sow a seed into another ministry. And so he wrote a check for $350. It was way beyond what he could afford at the time. In fact, they had to watch their bank account to make sure that, you know, the check wouldn't bounce. But he put the check in an envelope, dropped it in the mailbox just outside the post office, and then he walked inside to check his own P.O. box that he had there. And when he opened his P.O. box, there was an envelope that contained a check for $10,000. That happened within 30 seconds of him dropping that check in the mail. Now, giving doesn't always work that quickly, but sometimes God connects the dots so you know that the blessing you received is connected to the gift that you gave. But you have to give what you have before it can multiply. And I know this principle is counterintuitive because you think that if you keep it to yourself, you'll have more, but the truth is you'll have less. And I know the math doesn't add up, but when you bring God into the equation, 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish equal 5,000 family meals with 12 doggy bags left over. In God's economy, when you give what you'll have, you'll end up with more left over. God cannot multiply what you don't give away. And that is why many people never experience supernatural increase. You know, every single financial miracle that I've witnessed in my life can be traced back to something that I gave away. And when it comes to giving, God's not trying to take something from you. He's trying to give something to you. But God cannot multiply what you don't give. So take a step of faith, release what you have, and watch God bring supernatural increase in your life. If you enjoyed this message, do me a favor, smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm so that it'll send it out to more people. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. If you have an awesome story about you stepping out in faith and trusting God with your finances and him providing for you, I'd love to hear it in the comment section below. So let me know. Can't wait to hear from you. And remember, if it's not good, God's not done. Thanks for watching.